Good morning, Excel Geo. What we're doing today is the last thing that we're going to do before your 10.7 quiz. And I think I mentioned last week it might be Monday, but no, your quiz on 10.7 will be Tuesday, so it will be tomorrow. All right, guys? So what we're going to do is just go over one more concept that's going to be covered on the 10.7 quiz. In addition, the homework that you had for last week, the homework that I gave you Friday, I will post the answers to that. And if you have any questions, I need you to visit me on Canvas Conference and make sure we go over that. I also think that I'm going to try to have a Zoom chat at some point with you guys this week. So if you have any questions or concerns as a whole, we can have a discussion about that. So what we're going to do today is we are going to rewrite the equation of a circle in standard form. Now we've learned the equation of a circle in standard form, all right, guys? We've learned that our circle equation was x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared is equivalent to our radius squared. So we knew that h, k is our center, and r is equivalent to our radius. All right? That's what we've learned. So that is our formula that we've worked with. Now, it's nice that I've been giving you the equations of a circle in standard form, but we're going to look what happens when you're not given the equation of a circle in standard form. So this is an example, number one. Number one is not in standard form. All right, guys? So what we have here is we have an equation of a circle that is not in standard form. But if I look right here, I have an x squared, and then I have this y squared minus 6y plus 9. And what I can do is take a look at that. And if you take a look at that, you can notice that, wait a minute, I can factor this. My a value is 1, my b value negative 6, and my c value is 9. So I can say what adds to negative 6 and multiplies to 9. And if you take a look at that, you're going to notice, wait a minute, it's negative 3 and 3. So I can write y minus 3 times y minus 3, or I can write y minus 3 squared is equivalent to 4. And by looking at that, I can now say, wait a minute, this is in standard form. I can identify my center as 0, 3, and my radius as 2, because it would be the square root of 4. Now, the reason this works so nicely is this is what we call a perfect square trinomial. What does that mean? That means the two binomials that you multiply together would be the same. Now, for example, if I think of a perfect square trinomial, it looks like this. It means if I look at a perfect square trinomial. Trinomial means 3 terms. This is my perfect square trinomial. And it makes a perfect square because watch, if I made a square and both lengths of the square were y minus 3, the area of that squared would be y minus 3 times y minus 3, which would be this trinomial right here. So that's why we call it a perfect square trinomial. And in example 1, it worked out perfectly because I gave you the perfect square trinomial within the equation. That is not always going to be the case. So we are going to have to learn a method, and some of you, you did learn it in Algebra 1, and I'm sure some of you relearned it in Algebra 2. It's a method called completing the square. Now I'm going to emphasize the method that I'm teaching you only works when a is equivalent to 1. So this method only works when a is equivalent to 1. So you're going to get an expression, and it's going to work like this. You're going to have x squared, 1x squared, so a is 1, plus bx. This is the expression that we're going to work with, and we are going to complete the square. And we're going to go over how that's going to work. But make a note, this only works when our a value is equivalent to 1. Now, if I have this expression, this equation right here, okay, and I'm telling you, I want you to rewrite it in standard form of a circle. What I want us to do first is I want us to rearrange our equation. So your goal is going to have the x terms first, y terms second, and the constant on the other side. So we're going to do, this is your goal. We're going to have our x terms plus our y terms, and it's going to equal our constant. All right, now your constant is obviously what stands alone. This is what we want to do. And when we write our x terms and our y terms, we kind of want to write them in order from largest degree to smallest. Largest degree is obviously your degree is your exponent. So if we have a squared term, that's going to go first. So in this example, I'm going to say, well, I want x squared to be first, and then a positive 8x to be second. And I'm going to put it in parentheses. Plus, I want my y term. I'm going to move this negative y term to the other side. If I add it to the other side, it's going to become positive. And then I have my minus 2y. And then on the other side is going to be that constant, which is that 64. So I rewrote it where I have my x terms plus my y terms equals my constant. So that's what I wrote right here. Now the next thing we're going to do with that, guys, is if we take a look at it, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the square. Meaning, I'm going to find out what number I can put in right here and right here to make both of these perfect squared trinomials. And how do I do that? Well, I take my b value. In this one, we'll start here. My b value is 8. I take my b value and I divide it by 2 and I square it. Now watch what happens. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. And I'm going to input that into my expression. Now, one thing you have to know, if you add it to one side, we must also add it to the other. If you're adding 16 to one side of an equation, you must add it to the other so that the equation stays equivalent. Okay, we have to keep the weight equivalent on both sides. If I'm adding 16 here, I must add it to the opposite side. So whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. The same method is applied with our next one. We take that negative 2. I take that negative 2, I divide it by 2, and I square it. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. I add that to here, so I complete the square of my trinomial, and I add it to the other side. So be aware that I added 16 and 1. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, we must do the other to keep the equation equivalent. Now, the reason this works is now when you factor, you say what adds to 8 and multiplies to 16. Well, we know it's going to be the value of 4 because I took 8, I divided it by 2, so I broke it into 2 equal parts, and then I squared it. So this will be x plus 4 quantity squared. Because if I factored this, I would get 4 adds to 8, 4 plus 4 adds to 8 and multiplies to 16. I would get the binomial of x plus 4 times x plus 4, which is equivalent to x plus 4 squared. Now we also completed the square here. Now, if I look at this, what adds to negative 2 and multiplies to a positive 1? That would be that would be negative 1. I would factor this to y minus 1 times y minus 1, which would be y minus 1 squared. Now it's going to equal, I have to add all these up, and I'm going to get 64 plus 16 is 80. 80 plus 1 is 81. We now have our circle in standard form. So, if I look at this, I can now say my center is equivalent, negative 4, 1, and my radius is 9. All right? Now, how did we do this? Right here, this formula for finding how to complete the square. Notice I took the b value. Your formula for completing a square is you take b, divide it by 2, and square it. All right? And we add that to both sides. That is our formula for completing the square. All right? Well, I'm going to do one more problem with you guys. Let's flip this over. All right, again, first things first. We are going to get the x terms together, y terms together, and constants on the other side. So let's start. X terms. I'm going to bring the x squared over. I want my largest exponent first. And then I'm going to bring the 24, that if I bring a negative 24 over, it becomes a positive 24x. This is my x terms. Next, I have my y terms. I'm going to bring the y over to the left, the y squared, to get a positive y squared. Then I have a positive 6y. And then I'm bringing my constant to the other side. So that constant that's moving to the other side is a positive 137 becomes a negative 137. All right, guys, so what do I do next? So let's take a look at this. What do I do next? What I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the square. So I'm going to make these two perfect square trinomials. All right, so let's take a look. We're going to take our b value in each one. Remember, I'm going to say our formula is b divided by 2 squared. That is what we're adding to each one. B divided by 2 squared. Actually, let me put it where I don't think you can see it right now. So let's put up here. B divided by 2 squared. That's what we're going to be doing to complete the square. So if I take a look at that, and I do b divided by 2 squared in each case. So let's take a look. 24 is my b. Divided by 2 is 12. Squared is 144. So I'm adding 144. B here is 6. 6 divided by 2 and squared. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I'm adding 9 here. And because I added 144 and 9 to the left side of my equation, I must also add both of them to the right side of my equation. So now I can factor. This is a perfect square trinomial because what adds to 24 and multiplies to 144? Positive 12. So I would get x plus 12 times the quantity x plus 12, which is the same as x plus 12 quantity squared. Now let's look at our next one. I have y squared plus 6y plus 9. What adds to 6 and multiplies to 9? The answer would be 3 and 3. So you're getting the quantity of y plus 3 times the quantity of y plus 3, which would be the quantity of y plus 3 squared. And let's add our other side. Negative 137 plus 144 plus 9. So what am I getting when I add this, guys? Here I'm getting in this case, we're getting a positive 7 plus, positive 7 plus 9 is 16. Now here I have the equation of my circle in standard form. So I know my center is negative 12, negative 3, and I know my radius is the square root of 16, which is equivalent to 4. All right. Okay, guys, let's try one more. All right, so let's try one more. So let's try, in this case, one more. So in this one, we're going to have, again, this one we'll do x squared minus 12y plus 4 is equivalent to negative y squared minus 14x. All right, same thing. We're going to bring the x's terms in one at first, then we're going to add the y terms to it and bring all the constants to the other side. So, x squared term I want first. Perfect. The next x term is that negative 14x, but I want to move it from the right to the left, so it's going to become a positive 14x. Now I'm going to add my y terms. So I need my y squared. This is negative. I'm going to bring it to the left. The negative y squared will become a positive y squared. And then I bring down, I have a negative 12y. And I want to bring the constant to the other side. So this is a positive 4. I'm going to make a negative 4 on the other side. So now let's take a look at this. What is going to go here to complete the square? So let's take a look. I'm going to take my b value. In this case, it's 14. I'm going to take 14 divided by 2 and square it. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 7 squared is 49. So I'm going to add 49. Here I'm taking that negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 2 and square it. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is a positive 36. If I add both of them to the left side of the equation, I must add both of them to the right. So let's take a look. Now I have perfect squared trinomials. If I factor x squared plus 14x plus 49, what adds to 14 multiplies to 49? Positive 7 plus positive 7. Positive 7 times positive 7. So what you're getting here is x, the quantity of x plus 7 times the quantity of x plus 7, which is x plus 7 squared. Here, what adds to negative 12 and multiplies to 36? That would be the quantity of y minus 6 times the quantity of y minus 6, or the quantity of y minus 6 squared. Now let's add up that other side. Now if we take a look and add this up, I get negative 4 plus 49 is positive 45, plus a 36 is 81. So what happens here? Are we able to now find everything out? Yes, our center. What is the center of my circle? Because remember, this now is in standard form. What is the center of my circle? My center is negative 7, 6, and my radius is the square root of 81, which is 9. That's how we rewrite our equations of circles in standard form. So, guys, you have a worksheet below. That's your homework for tonight. Your quiz on this is tomorrow. If you have any questions, please come to Canvas Conference. I will be posting the answers after 8 o'clock tonight to the homework. And in addition, I have the answers to your homework from Friday posted. If you have any questions, please come visit me on Canvas Conference. And I hope to see you there. Bye.